Progress, in the Stoic understanding, does not arrive with fanfare or in flashes of brilliance. It is not summoned by inspiration alone. Rather, it is built through the steady, quiet accumulation of effort, one deliberate act after another. This sense of purpose and direction, cultivated through momentum, is not an accident. It is a deliberate choice. It provides you with a clear path forward, guiding you and keeping your focus intact. The Stoics' approach to resistance is a testament to their resilience and determination. They understand that every worthwhile endeavor begins with resistance. Starting is heavy. Like a bike stuck in high gear, the first push feels unnatural, even painful. Yet with continued motion, resistance fades. The Stoic accepts this early discomfort not as failure, but as a necessary stage. They do not demand instant clarity. They ask only, what can be done now? Rather than obsessing over the magnitude of the task, they divide it. A single paragraph. A thoughtful sentence. A small, repeated act of care. The Stoic understands that these modest efforts, accumulated daily, gain force. And that force, momentum, does what motivation cannot. It carries you forward even when the mood fades. The work becomes easier not because the task shrinks, but because the one who commits becomes stronger. In time, what once felt immovable becomes fluid. This is the reward not of genius, but of steadiness. Progress is not found in speed, but in rhythm. And rhythm is born from the discipline to begin again each day. This steady commitment is not just a process, but a journey towards a stronger, more capable self. Perfectionism is the mask worn by fear. It says, do not begin unless you are certain. Do not share unless it is flawless. But the Stoic sees through this deception. They know that perfection is not a standard of excellence. It is a stall, a deferral, a subtle form of avoidance. The work must begin before it is ready. It must be shaped in motion, not in endless preparation. The Stoic learns that creation is never clean. It is uncomfortable. It demands the humility to revise and the courage to release. Moving forward in spite of uncertainty is not a flaw, it is a necessity. There is also the temptation of approval, the hunger for praise, the quiet dread of disapproval. But the Stoic does not anchor their purpose to external reactions. They understand that applause cannot sustain a soul. Instead, they seek to act from within. Not to impress, but to express what is true. Not to please, but to remain faithful to what matters. The Stoics' approach to reflection and action underlines their proactive nature. Through reflection, clarity emerges. Past wounds, unmet expectations, old fears, they all whisper in moments of doubt. But reflection alone is not enough. Insight must be followed by action. The Stoic does not merely understand themselves, they shape themselves. To create something meaningful, one must let go of the need to be perfect, to be praised, or to be understood. What remains is something deeper, the quiet alignment of effort with principle. And in that alignment, the work becomes not only possible, it becomes necessary. And now let's draw 12 principles for the Stoic. Principle 1. Embrace the long game. The Stoic walks with the understanding that greatness is not built in haste. Lasting progress emerges through repetition, through quiet discipline applied day after day. In a culture that exalts speed and instant results, the Stoic turns inward, favoring process over performance. Momentum begins not with grand declarations but with the simple decision to begin, and to begin again tomorrow. One word written, one act done with care, one moment lived in alignment, these compound into something meaningful. The Stoic is not discouraged by slow progress, they are discouraged only by a lack of intention. They do not ask how quickly success will come, but whether the path is worthy. Time is not their adversary, but their teacher. Even when results remain invisible, effort is never wasted. In this long game, the Stoic is patient with process, resilient in setbacks, and unwavering in aim. The reward is not simply what is built, but who they become through the building. They do not rush, they endure. And in endurance, they transform. Principle 2. Detach from external validation. The Stoic does not build their identity on applause, nor do they allow criticism to shape their core. Praise is fleeting, and criticism is often incomplete, but integrity is enduring. To live well is not to be seen well, but to live truthfully regardless of who watches. When validation becomes the compass, direction is lost. The Stoic learns to listen to others, but never allows their voice to drown out their own. They ask not, will they approve, but is this aligned with my values? This is a discipline of freedom, not from feedback, but from dependence. To create, to speak, to act without the need for affirmation is a rare strength. It allows the Stoic to work with courage, to write what is true, to parent with presence, and to live without posturing. In detaching from validation, the Stoic becomes grounded. Their compass is internal, their reward intrinsic. They are not unfeeling, they are simply unshaken. Approval may come, disapproval may follow, but the Stoic remains, anchored not in perception, but in principle. Principle 3. Start small to build momentum. The Stoic knows that a great life is not built in leaps, but in consistent steps. A mountain is moved one stone at a time. When the task feels overwhelming, they return to what is smallest, what can be done now, simply, with intention. Starting small is not a retreat, it is the beginning of power. The Stoic understands that momentum comes from motion, not from planning. A single act, repeated, becomes rhythm. And in rhythm, inertia fades. This approach removes pressure and awakens clarity. There is no need to solve everything at once. One clear sentence. One mindful breath. One act of integrity. From these, the day unfolds. When large goals cloud vision, the Stoic returns to the present and asks, what is the next right step? And they take it. Each small motion is a vote for the person they are becoming. Over time, what felt impossible becomes second nature. The Stoic trusts in this slow momentum. Not glamorous, not dramatic, but real. Small steps lead, eventually, to vast transformation. Principle 4. Accept imperfection. Perfection is a mirage, and the Stoic does not chase it. They accept imperfection not as resignation, but as realism. To demand flawlessness is to delay action, to judge too harshly, to live in fear of falling short. The Stoic acts with care, but lets go of the fantasy that all must be polished, symmetrical, or applauded. They recognize the quiet strength in work that is honest rather than pristine. They know that truth often comes with rough edges. Mistakes are not evidence of failure, but of movement. To aim for perfection is often to avoid vulnerability. The Stoic chooses vulnerability instead, chooses to show up, even if imperfectly. They finish the page, release the project, speak the words. Not because it is flawless, but because it is faithful to the moment. In doing so, they grow. And as they grow, so does their capacity for grace, toward themselves, toward others, toward the unfinished beauty of life itself. Principle 5. Cultivate patience and consistency. The Stoic values the long arc of consistency over the flash of intensity. Progress built on urgency collapses under its own weight. But consistency, quiet, steady, grounded, endures. The Stoic is not rushed by comparison or pressured by deadlines of ego. They know that mastery, peace, character, all are born from showing up again and again, even when it is hard, even when it is dull. Patience is not waiting passively. It is enduring with discipline. It is working when no one sees. It is the strength to keep going when motivation fades. The Stoic understands that success comes not from doing something once with force, but 1,000 times with quiet devotion. Each repeated act, each day of effort, carves depth into the self. This is the essence of reliability, not just for others, but for oneself. The Stoic becomes dependable, not through force, but through rhythm. They move forward not with speed, but with certainty. And that certainty changes everything. Principle 6. Focus on what you can control. The Stoic draws a clear line between what is theirs and what is not. Opinions, outcomes, the past, the behavior of others, these are not theirs to command. What is theirs? Thoughts, choices, responses, principles. And so they place their energy not where it is wasted, but where it is transformative. When storms rage, they do not try to quiet the sky, they steady the ship. This clarity brings peace. The Stoic no longer spends their days trying to rewrite what cannot be rewritten or control what was never theirs. Instead, they narrow the focus. What can I do now? How can I act well here? In this narrowing lies expansion, not of influence, but of freedom. They become powerful in the only place true power exists, the space between stimulus and response. To live by this principle is to live lightly but decisively. No longer at the mercy of events, the Stoic becomes anchored in what they can truly command, themselves. Principle 7. Learn from self-reflection. The Stoic turns inward not out of vanity, but for clarity. Reflection is the act of stepping back to see more clearly, not just what happened, but how one responded. In a world that moves quickly, the Stoic slows down long enough to ask, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What do I fear? What do I avoid? This is not self-criticism. It is self-study. The goal is not perfection, but understanding. Reflection turns experience into wisdom. Without it, mistakes repeat. With it, each moment becomes a lesson. But the Stoic knows reflection is not enough, it must be paired with action. Insight without change is stagnation. And so, the Stoic uses what they learn to shape who they become. They don't simply watch themselves, they refine. They revise. They course correct. Over time, reflection becomes a habit, a daily practice of realignment. It softens pride. It strengthens resolve. It teaches the Stoic that growth is not linear, but continual, and that the self, like any good work, must be revisited often to be truly understood. Principle 8. Don't fear failure. Failure is not the enemy. For the Stoic, it is the forge. It is the heat that reveals what is fragile and what is true. To fail is not to fall short, it is to step into the unknown, to try despite the risk, to learn from reality rather than fantasy. The Stoic does not avoid failure. They prepare for it. They meet it not with shame, but with examination. What did I learn? What must I adjust? Where was the flaw, not just in the plan, but in the perspective? Fear of failure, by contrast, paralyzes. It turns effort into avoidance. But when failure is accepted as part of the process, effort becomes free again. The Stoic acts not because success is guaranteed, but because growth is possible. Each failure becomes a teacher, a sculptor, a mirror. It clarifies ambition and tests commitment. And over time, failure transforms, not into defeat, but into depth. The Stoic does not fear it because they no longer expect life to be easy. They only expect themselves to remain honest, even when it is hard. Principle 9. Simplify and focus on what matters. To the Stoic, simplicity is a form of wisdom. It is the art of knowing what to hold and what to let go. Complexity often masks indecision or ego. But clarity, real clarity, requires subtraction. The Stoic simplifies not to shrink life, but to see it more fully. They strip away the excess, the need to impress, the desire to accumulate, the pull of distraction. What remains is what matters. In work, this means focusing on the essential. In relationships, it means being present, not performative. In values, it means alignment, not abundance. The Stoic regularly asks, is this necessary? Does this serve what I truly care about? Simplification is not an aesthetic, it's an ethic. It brings depth to the moment. It sharpens attention. It makes space for what is sacred. And in that space, the Stoic moves with greater ease, with fewer regrets, and with a quieter kind of strength, the kind that comes not from having more, but from needing less. Principle 10. Practice daily discipline. Discipline is the structure that sustains freedom. The Stoic does not wait for ideal conditions or inspiration. They train. They show up. They do the work, especially when it is hard. Daily discipline is not a punishment, but a commitment to something higher: consistency, mastery, integrity. It is a quiet contract made each morning. I will act, not drift. I will create, not delay. I will stay loyal to what I value, even when comfort beckons me away. The Stoic builds rituals, not to control time, but to make it sacred. Whether it is writing before dawn, walking in silence, or reflecting at day's end, these acts are not glamorous. They are grounding. Over time, discipline becomes character. It builds not only skill, but identity. And on days when energy falters or motivation disappears, discipline remains. The Stoic does not ask for ease. They ask for strength. And each day of discipline is a day spent becoming, not accidentally, but deliberately. Principle 11. Find meaning in the journey. The Stoic is not deceived by destination thinking. They know that life is not lived later, but now. Achievement is fleeting. Completion is temporary. But the journey, the daily steps, the struggle, the learning, that is where meaning dwells. The Stoic sees life not as a series of outcomes, but as a single unfolding act. They do not wait for the perfect moment to feel fulfilled. They feel it in the effort, alignment, and act of doing what matters, today. Each challenge is not an obstacle to meaning, but the very means of discovering it. Purpose is not always clear in advance, it is revealed in movement. And so, the Stoic moves. They work. They love. They stumble. They reflect. They keep going. And in that going, they gather the threads of a life that was never about arriving, but about becoming. A life not of regret, but of engagement. Not of waiting, but of walking, awake, aware, and alive. Principle 12. Embrace the unknown with courage. Uncertainty is a constant. The Stoic does not run from it. They walk into it with eyes open and spirit steady. To live well is to live without guarantees. The Stoic accepts that the future is unwritten, that control is limited, and that risk is unavoidable. But this does not make them timid, it makes them brave. Because courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act while fear remains. The Stoic prepares not for every outcome but for any. They do not need assurance to begin. They only need clarity of intent. Whether in parenting, art, or daily decisions, they step forward. They speak the truth. They release the work. They say yes to life, not the life they hoped for, but the one that is here. This courage is not loud. It is not performative. It is rooted, silent, calm. It is the courage to be present, real, and unfinished. And in that presence, they become whole.